The white pieces opens with pawn to e4. We have pawn to e5, knight f3, knight to c6, and bishop to c4. Alireza goes for the Italian game, knight f6, Hikaru with the two knights defense, and now not everyone's favorite knight u5, but rather d3, the modern bishop's opening. Usually bishop d7 and bishop to c5 are considered main moves, but Hikaru was for h3, is the third most popular continuation, but still a serious attempt. We have pawn to c3, bishop to c5, and pawn to b4 going after the bishop here, bishop back d7, and queen to b3, just putting pressure on f7, much like you would in an Evans gambit. We have castles, king set by Hikaru, pawn to a4, and pawn to d6. We have castles and knight to b8, preparing to play pawn to c6, pawn to a5, and go after this advanced structure that Hikaru has on the queen side. And there is a game with this exact same setup, and it's actually from the FIDE World Cup last year. Pregnant had it against Fabiano Caruana. Their game ended in the draw, but in the game, knight b to d2 was played. Here, queen to a2 was played, and it is now as of move 10 that we have a completely new game. Well, not really, because they already played this in the classical before Armageddon, but for all intents and purposes of the database, it is a completely new game. But yeah, this got me thinking about the FIDE World Cup last year. Prague really had an amazing run. He defeated Arjun in the quarterfinal. In the quarterfinals, then he defeated Fabiano Caruana in the semifinals, and then met Magnus Carlsen in the finals, but he lost to Magnus. But an incredible run by Prague. Okay, pawn to a5, challenging the structure here, pawn to b5 and pawn to c6. That's why the knight moved back so you could advance the pawn. And this is the new move now, really, because in the classical game, Hikaru went for bishop to g4. Here he goes for c6. So it's really as of move 11 that we have a completely new game. So, okay, knight b to d2. Well, it has a bishop to g4 and now pawn to h3, challenging the bishop. And some of you have been asking in the comments, is the addition of the clocks now a standard addition to the channel? No, it's only for Armageddon games or for Blitz games or some, or if time is really an issue in the game. Like sometimes I might use it in a classical game if time is really important. If not, I'm just going to mention what the situation on the clock was. So pawn to h3, bishop to h5, and rook to e1. So you can advance the pawn to d4 and move the knight. d4 pawn will be nicely defended, and Hikaru could just continue developing. Sorry, bishop d6 or knight beats a d7, or knight h7 make room for the f5 pawn if the king moves. But he was for pawn to d5 right away. And this is a little bit dangerous, but it's very hard to know. Even if you study all the theory there is about the gioco piano, about the two knights defense, or about any other variation, it's very difficult to really know when you can advance d4 and d5. But okay, Hikaru goes for it. This will make his pawns vulnerable. E captures, we have c captures, and now bishop to b3. So the pawn on e5 is hanging, and Hikaru just continues developing. Knight b to d7. He would rather be down a pawn than down in development. If we have knight captures on e5, knight captures, rook captures on e5, and now just bishop to d6. So, like you would in, for example, on the martial attack, you will give up a pawn, you go bishop d6, attack the rook goes back, and you have a very nice attack. And here Prague could definitely, Alireza could definitely continue. Rook captures on h5 or rook captures on d5. He's already up a pawn, so he might grab another one and sacrifice the exchange. But he doesn't. He just goes back, rook to e1. Probably the situation reminds him of the marshal too much, where you go back with the rook. Queen to d7, and now bishop to a3. Offering some trays, we have rook a to c8, and now pawn to c4. So there still isn't any danger of the pawn being advanced to c5, as Hikaru has control over the c5 square. But you have to be careful. Bishop to g6 attacks the pawn, and pawn to d4. Now c5 is a threat, and Hikaru has to act accordingly. Bishop captures on a3, queen captures, d captures on c4. So he brings the tension in the center, but he allows Alireza to improve the activity of his pieces. Knight captures on c4. Queen captures on d4, equalizing material, but now rook a to d1. And it's equal material, but Alireza's pieces are much more active than Hikaru's pieces. Queen f4, and he immediately goes for the queen trade. Queen d6. The b7 pawn is weak, and if you can get those rooks up the board, eliminate this pawn, create a past b pawn, the game will be winning. So queen captures on d6. It is best to trade queens here. And now rook captures on d6. It seems like knight captures is a nice move because you attack the rook and the pawn, but rook c3 is very annoying. So after queen captures, rook captures on d6, and now we have bishop to c2. A very tricky move by Hikaru with 2 minutes on the clock, asking Alireza, do you want to capture so I can capture on c4? And Alireza instantly just moves the bishop, but there was actually a very nice knight captures on a5 for some reason. Alireza didn't play it. Pawn being dead after captures, and let's say rook c4 going after the a4 pawn, you have rook d4, and everything's nicely defended. You have 2 against 1 on the queen side. Should be very nice, but maybe Alireza is just so strong and he sees so far into the future that he decided that Hikaru will have sufficient drawing chances, so he keeps the tension, bishop to a2. And now, again, Hikaru is the one that can just eliminate everything, all of the tension from the queen side of the board, and he will have an easy game. But he doesn't. The idea is bishop captures on a4. And then after rook to b6 going after b7, you defend it. And then after knight to d6 going after the b7 pawn, you play knight to d7 and you just force the trade. Rook captures, knight captures, you play rook to b8, you go after the knight. Knight captures, and now bishop captures on b5. No pawns on the queen side. This is now an easy draw. But Hikaru went for knight to e4. And now we have rook to d7 going after the b7 pawn. Knight to c5 attacking the rook and defending the pawn, and now rook d to e7. Knights to d3 going after the rook on e1, and now rook 1 to e3. Rook to e1 is actually winning, but it's Armageddon. Of course, players have to play really quickly. Knight to b4 now attacks the bishop, and knight to d6 attacks the b7 pawn, the rook, and the f7 pawn. And here we have rook c to d8. Knight captures on a2, although it looks like a very nice move. Seems it was too difficult a move to spot for little time control, because now after knight captures on c8 and rook captures on b7, you have a knight and bishop for a rook, and significant drawing chances. But Hikaru went for rook c to d8. And now he runs into bishop captures on f7 with check. This was likely a blunder by Hikaru, or maybe he missed one move that Alireza found that you guys will also have a chance at finding. Rook captures on f7, knight captures on f7, and now rook to d1 with check. King to h2, and now knights to d5. With the beautiful fork, we reached a position from the thumbnail. And now there is only one move winning for Alireza, most likely the one that Hikaru missed. So feel free to pause the video and win the game for Alireza, while I give you a couple of seconds. So for those of you who were able to do it, congratulations on looking really deep into the position and emerging with the truth. And for those of you who just want to enjoy the show, it is knight captures on h6 check. That's the move that wins, and that's the move that Alireza played. Point being that you have to capture the knight. If you go, let's say king f8, rook e8 is checkmate, also rook to f7 is checkmate. If you go king h7, for example, then you go knight g4, and the white is just up too much material. For example, knight captures, rook captures, and whatever you play, you lose the b7 pawn, the b5 pawn is defended, and with 2 extra pawns in the past b pawn, this is easily winning. So you have to capture the knight. G captures on h6, and now rook to g3 with check. That was the whole point, unpinning the rooks from the knight, or unforking the rooks. King f8, and now rook captures on b7. And now the problem is not the 2 versus 1 on the queen side, but that the king is cut off from the game, and it's very easy for the other rook to create some winning chances. Even checkmating threats like rook to g6, rook to a6, rook to a8 will be checkmate, or rook to g6, rook captures here, rook to h8. All of those will be checkmating threats. So Hikaru played bishop captures on a4, but now rook to g6, and there really isn't much for Hikaru to do here. Knight e7 was played, rook to e6, and Hikaru played knight to c8, and he was in this position on move 40 that Hikaru either resigned the game or lost in time. He had a few seconds on the clock, so I wasn't really watching this live, but it doesn't matter. Either he resigned or he lost on time. It's a very simple win for Alireza, because after this knight to c move, you could go for just rook captures, the threat is checkmate, and if the king blocks, then you go the other way around. Rook a6, there's no defense against rook to a8, that's just game. You could even make it interesting, something like rook d8, but then you go for rook to a8, and even if bishop to b3, to sort of defend the knight, you still have the passed b pawn to worry about, and once that pawn reaches b4, it's more often than not, it's unstoppable. Something like rook to c7, you can defend, but then just pawn to b6 there. And if we can even make it a fun game, since a lot of you enjoy it when I finish the games, let's say a3, we can bring a queen into the game, and now after, let's say a2, we can even give up the queen. Bishop captures, we're gonna play rook a captures on c8, and now if black brings a queen into the game, rook captures is checkmate, and if not, if you trade, then this comes with check, you will play rook to a8, defend the queening square, and now of course he will easily checkmate the black king.